Escaping the Dacia by Rebecca Inch-Partridge. The D-Cadets are Dacia, a group of genetically engineered telepaths who use their powers to control some and ruin others. Twyla's been living in hiding on Earth, hoping to leave her past behind, but her mother finds her. When escape seems impossible, Twyla considers suicide. Then she meets Dovane. Can she trust herself enough to risk loving him? If she does, will that love save her or lead to her destruction? Discovering who you are can be dangerous, even deadly. I'm your host, Rod Gilley, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you today Rebecca Inch-Partridge. Kick back and relax and enjoy the show. Hi, Rebecca. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you, Rod?
Oh, not bad at all. A little hectic earlier, but I caught up.
Well, I'm glad I'm here, and I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I love this little show. It's such a great opportunity to get to know people like you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see, just for the sake of the few in the audience who may not know who you are, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So, I'm Rebecca Inch-Partridge, and I am one of the few people who can say that she is living her dream. I
Mhm.
wanted to be a published author back when I was a little kid. A matter of fact, I wrote my first book when I was in third grade. It was The Bionic Woman Meets Captain Kirk. And guess who the Bionic Woman was? That was never published, but now finally, a book that I wrote when I was 15, I have rewritten and it is out. And so I'm a freelance editor by day, which supports my writing habit.
Mhm.
And I'm ruler of the Praxis Star Cluster by night.
Oh, well, sounds pretty cool. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll hop into some quick questions here. I can't resist this question.
Oh,
A muse from your youth, because I'm a huge fan of both. Jamie Summers meets James Kirk. How did that turn out?
well, the truth is, because I was only, third grade, Jamie Summers hadn't been invented yet. I thought they stole the concept from me. I
Oh,
used to play Saver Rebecca, and I
mhm,
was this superhero.
mhm,
And so then I incorporated Star Trek, which we watched faithfully as a family.
mhm.
And I had a crush on Captain Kirk. And so when Earth wasn't enough for all my wild adventures, I had the Enterprise come whisk me away to a planet far, far away and just had so much fun pretending and playing. And I was
Uh-huh.
just learning how to write that I started writing them down.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a friend that's into fan fiction where you just make up episodes of any show, but you can't really publish
Mm-hmm.
them. And he loves doing it. And I grew up loving to watch both of those shows. I thought they were cool. And like when I was a little boy, I came up in the 70s. Uh,
I
well,
see Steve Austin in you.
and most of the boys of my age, they were, everybody had a superhero. Most of them were either Superman or Batman. For
Mm-hmm.
me, it was James T. Kirk. You know,
Oh, yeah.
oh yeah, he was so cool.
Well, I love original Star Trek, and it
Oh
was
yeah,
something that our family would watch together and then talk about because it actually dealt with issues
oh
that were
yeah.
a really good thing for kids to
Uh-huh.
talk to about with their parents. It was groundbreaking.
Yeah, and very bold. Like, for example, the first thing that pops in mind is Kirk kissing Harura. At that
The
time, that
first
was a
interracial, yeah,
yeah.
first
Mhm.
interracial kiss on television. And
Yeah.
I mean, just having a Black woman professional on the bridge,
Oh yeah.
um, there was just so many things that Star Trek did and did it well.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about science fiction
Uh-huh.
is that it gives you a canvas where it's safe to explore really touchy subjects,
Uh-huh.
because they also touched on race when they had the episode where some people were black on the right side and some
Mhm.
people were black on the left side, and Kirk and Spock
Yeah.
could not understand the problem. And if
Uh-huh.
that didn't say to America, really? Really?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
pretty wild. And I think the
mhm.
show ran from what, 66 to 69.
Yeah,
So,
4 years, 73 episodes. They thought it was
yeah.
dead, 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 and the fans just would not let it die.
Yeah.
At the launch party for my book, to see how many geeks we had in the room, I started the speech, Space, the Final Frontier, and the whole room recited the entire opening prologue of Star Trek. And I just sat back and soaked it in.
Yeah, it's freaking awesome.
It
Now I'm
is.
curious because you brought it up a little bit. 1966, they come out with this little show with apparently a pretty small budget, and the whole
Salt
bunch.
shakers for props, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's actually episodes you can see the Enterprise hanging from a string. You know, I always loved when Kirk got on his elevator, in a gold shirt and came off the elevator in a green shirt. I always loved that kind of stuff. But you're right, the show was in some ways groundbreaking. And I'm curious, from 1966, the role of women, and for the moment, we'll set aside the little mini skirts,
Mhm.
because there were a lot of them. But there was also, like Aurora, and there were a few characters that were really strong in that series. All right, now it's 2023. In terms of how the world of television and sci-fi treat women, do you see a significant change? And if so, kind of touch base on what you
Oh,
think the difference is.
yeah, it's huge. And it's not that we don't still have progress needing to be made, especially in science, technology, engineering, math, because the STEM fields of careers still, a lot of them have less than a 10%
Mm,
female employment. But there are several things that have changed over the years. And the
mm,
first time I really saw it happening was when my son was in fourth grade. He was a really avid reader, and I told him I wouldn't let him see the Lord of the Rings movie until he read the book. So here's this fourth grader reading Lord of the Rings.
Wow.
And so he plowed through that one. So I told him he could read any of the books on my bookcase. And he pulled out um, Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Singer.
Mhm.
And he comes out confused, and he's like, Mom, I don't understand what's going on. And I'm like, oh, what words don't you understand? And he's like, no, Mom, I understand the words, but for some reason she can't be a bard. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's because she's a woman. Oh, women in their race can't sing. No, they're not allowed to sing. Oh, well, why not? Are they awful? No, it's just a cultural thing. But why? Well, because in their culture, women stay home and take care of the home, and they don't get to go sing. But that doesn't make sense. What's wrong with women? Why can't they do that? And it's like all of a sudden I realized he had no idea that there were supposed to be careers that women couldn't do. And
Yeah.
so it just didn't click.
Mhm.
And that was a really great feeling. I remember how wonderful it was. But it was only a couple years later when I thought I had my first breakthrough and was going to get my first book published.
Mhm.
And this close. And I'm really excited. And I won't say who it was, but a publisher came to me and said, well, if we move forward with this, what name do you want to be published under? I'm like, well, my name, Rebecca Inch-Partridge. Oh, no, 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 no. This is science fiction. You can't have that feminine of a name. So what we can't use Rebecca. That will never sell.
Mhm.
And it's so sad because if you think about it, up until then, CJ Sheriff had to use initials. We had women who had used masculine surnames. But by the 80s and early 90s, I thought we were past that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that much longer. a while, but it wasn't that much longer than Harry Potter came out and the whole thing of about a female writer was put to bed. But you'll notice what she published under. It wasn't a female first name.
Yeah, that's a trip. It doesn't make a lick of sense, does it?
No.
You know, I was
Well,
thinking.
it's a marketing thing. They didn't think young boys would read a book by a female author. Female readers will read male authors, but male young men won't read female authors, and that's just not true anymore. They really don't have that prejudice.
Yeah, I think that throughout time, really, and definitely these days as well as any, us grown-ups need to listen to the kids more. You know, because
Yes, they're so much more open-minded.
prejudices, yeah, the prejudices and things like that. That's stuff you learn as you grow older.
Hmm.
You didn't need to learn it. It's a shame you learned it. You know, we need to listen to the kids. I'm proud to say a recent guest on my show was a wonderful lady and a nuclear engineer, by golly, E.A. Smeralda. And you're right, she did go by E.A. Smeralda. And so it was an initial thing. But by golly, she can rock, she can make some great music, and she's a nuclear engineer, and she's a writer. So,
Yeah,
and
she's
you
awesome.
know, look at all the things you're involved in. They gave me a list a mile long. I was going to ask you, what is Broad Universe?
Oh, wow. That is a fantastic group, and it is actually open to men, but we aren't dainty ladies. We're broads, and we are women of the science fiction fandom community, writers and scientists and fans that support each other. And so my first chance to be on a panel at World Fantasy Con, I mean, we're talking like way up there in the hierarchy, was at a rapid fire reading because I was a Broad Universe member. And so they open up all sorts of opportunities, and it's just amazing what that difference makes, having a mentor, having accountability, having friends in the industry who are also wives, mothers, and have a day job. You know, there's a lot involved.
Yeah.
And the other thing, just opening up career options has made it so that women get to be exposed to areas that they never had a mentor or somebody to look up in, you know, to before. Right now, I am editing a memoir by a woman who was an assistant director in Hollywood during the 70s and 80s. And I really didn't realize what a boys' club it was back then, and how, you know, how much of groundbreaking she had to do, quite often being the first woman assistant director on a set. And it is wonderful. When I first started going to conventions 20 years ago, I was like the only woman under 50, and just about, I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit. And the audience was probably a 30-70 mix, you know, it was mainly male, but there were a few women, and the panels were almost exclusively male. Really? And then it got so that they had to have their token female on every panel. And it almost got to be a joke because they'd go, oh no, okay, we didn't get a woman for this panel. We better throw one on. And sometimes they'd go up there and go, I have no idea what I'm doing on this panel. And one of the men would say, you're a woman. And we had to have a woman. And that did not go well.
No, that's horrible.
Yeah. Now I go to conventions, and not only is there a 50-50 split in the audience, there is a 50-50 split on the panel. It is equally represented. And what's nice is that diversity has, now that it has broken through, it's also led to more diversity in race and gender and sexual orientation. And it's nice to get such a huge wave of translated work from other parts of the world that write science fiction that is new and fresh. And oh my gosh, the last Worldcon had a Africa sci-fi thrust, and it's amazing because of their oral tradition. It had a cadence, it had a feel, it had an impact. and it was a totally different style, and it was refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I love the idea, particularly in writing, but really in every aspect of life. There's so much that every different person has to offer. And what freaks me out is, you're the wrong color, you're the wrong gender, your bedroom's different than mine. You know what? Since the beginning, whichever way you believe, science or religion, all of us are different. You know, you could get a man
Well,
my age with my general frame, and you know what? We're very different. You know?
and people wonder why N.K. Jemisin's first acceptance speech for the Hugo was like, told you so. It's like, I'm here to spite all the times I got told a woman of color could never make it in the industry.
Yeah.
And she just laid it out. And
Yeah.
it was really eye opening for a lot of people. And it led to some really good discussions. And that's the other thing. When I go to Baycon at the not end of this month, the beginning of July, 4th of July weekend, some of the panels we're going to be talking about issues that really need to be talked about. And we're not talking preachy. We're not talking trying to force your ideals or beliefs on somebody else. We're talking about healthy debate and discussion about the practical applications, but also just science for the sake of science and theory for the sake of theory, and, science fiction. And it's so fun to talk about different aspects of the genre. Yeah. And now we call it speculative fiction because that encompasses science fiction, which everybody always thinks of as Star Trek, Star Wars type thing. And then fantasy, which everybody thinks Lord of the Rings. And it's the whole umbrella that when you really look at all the different subgenres of speculative fiction, even people who say, oh, yeah, I don't like science fiction, there's something in that genre, whether it's paranormal, there's something in there that they do like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the great things about science fiction. They can encompass all the others in one story.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
and so many mainstream authors have adopted the whole magic realism thing to avoid having it called science fiction. And it's like, that's science fiction. Yeah. That's urban fantasy, or that's contemporary fantasy, but it's science fiction. And but I understand. I mean, science fiction is such a small part of the market that people want to not be on that section of the shelf.
Well, I actually love science fiction. I mean, my big thing that I write in is horror and thrillers and fantasy. That's my little pocket of the world. But one of my best friends is a science fiction writer, and like I said, I could name a bunch of sci-fi shows I love. What I really love and fear with science fiction is that the science fiction of the past is the reality of the future. And I became convinced of that when Captain Kirk had that communicator that he would flip open. When I got my first cell phone, it flipped open exactly like that. So things like AI make me a little nervous if you think about your science fiction shows. Let's say Terminator,
there's so many things that could be used for good or evil. So you got to figure cloning was completely science fiction.
Yeah.
Back when I first started reading those stories, and Larry Nivens and all these great authors. And now we have the debate whether cloned horses should be allowed in horse racing.
Yeah.
They're trying to clone the horse that some famous movies was based on.
Yeah.
And they've cloned several other famous racehorses. And it's like, this is reality now. And there's so many other things like that that we're facing. Life extension, now that they've really figured out the telomeres, what implication is it going to have if they figure out how to seal so the telomeres don't unravel? I mean, we've been doing science fiction stories where people live for hundreds of years, and how that, there's so many issues that science fiction tries to make us look at in advance.
Yeah.
Growing organs. So one of the things that shocked me is I used to write inbound marketing. So it's just a clickbait. but there are articles based on major breakthroughs in research in biomedical and biotechnology breakthroughs at universities across the United States. And one of them was growing the kidney cells, the liver cells, and all of these in petri dishes and making organs. And I'm like, that was a science fiction story I read just 10 years ago. And but there's positive too. I mean, that student who just was able to walk across the stage and get his diploma after, having been shot and paralyzed because he had what would almost be like the exterior exoskeleton suits in a lot of sci-fi. I don't want to name any particular franchises, but Master Chief. And he can walk because now he has an exoskeleton suit.
Yeah.
They're getting to the point where people who can't talk can wear almost EEG caps and send specific signals that they really train and have the computer voice it for them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, that's close to reading the mind. I mean, and since my book deals with telepathy, I never even thought about an artificial technology that would read minds. But that's coming in book 3 because it's happening for real. And so when Twilight hates her telepathic powers, when she realizes that her evil criminal family organization is working on being able to use technology instead of just telepath, she's like, nope, gotta blow that up. Nope, all the research notes, all the computers, gone.
Now, one thing I'm going to try to do here is lean way over, and I'm sorry, I have a little cheat sheet. Put a picture of your novel up here.
Oh, thank you.
And it's a YA science fantasy called Escaping the Dacia, right? Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about it?
So first of all, I have to explain what a Dacia is because everybody always goes, what in the world is that? They're basically psychic vampires. So Twyla has telepathic powers, and her mother kidnaps her back from Earth after she's been in hiding trying to escape the criminal organization. And she wants Twyla to take her place in the family business. Well, Twyla doesn't want to be a psychic vampire. So all sorts of really super dramatic mother-daughter tension ensue. And it was a book I wrote when I was 15 to vent everything I was feeling about my own lack of self-esteem. And it was so interesting coming back to the book as a woman with a son my age at that time, and keeping that character true to that 15-year-old while increasing the writing skill level to where I was after being an editor for several years. Twyla had been living with me for years, and now she gets to get out and get free and go play and go do all sorts of crazy things because she's a hot-headed redhead who just takes no crap.
Wow.
And so she's so fun. She's my alter ego. And that's one of the things I love about writing is the therapy of having absolute control.
Yeah. When
else in your life can you have happen whatever you want to have happen?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was fun getting in touch with my younger self.
It's cool that that's a story from your teens that later you were able to really develop as a writer. That is so cool. I bet it was a lot of fun to do that.
It is. And, I was 15 at the time, the same age as the protagonist. And I've got book 2 pretty far into, but I had that book also roughed out. So I had stuff to work with. When it comes to book 3, it's all the stuff that I have dreamt up in my head for 30 years that is finally going to get down on paper. It feels like a volcano that has finally got to erupt and let all of this out because it's been in my mind. It's like having a person that you think about even when you can't talk to them or be with them. And you always are going, oh, I wonder what they... And it's like, I know what Twyla would say and do in every situation. Not always the diplomatic thing that I should say or do, but the voice in my head sometimes is very amusing, and I have to be careful it doesn't come out my mouth and only comes out on paper. But I'll run to my jot book to put down some snarky thing or some idea from what Twyla was thinking that I don't dare actually say in real life.
Well, we all have that younger person in us.
Yeah, most of us are taught to suppress it, and that's one nice thing about writing.
Yeah, I think my wife is trying to compliment me and saying that I'm a 200-pound 5-year-old.
Well, you know what? When she says that, say, "Oh yes, how vast is the 5-year-old sky." It's one of the most important lines of poetry I ever learned. Oh,
I'm sitting
now
at
see,
my desk.
mine's a Mustang.
I'm sitting at my desk, believe it or not. And this
Yep.
little car, you can pull it backwards and it'll take off.
I have my dad's stunt car of that from when he was a kid that I play with. So we gotta play.
Yeah. I don't
It's
want us to
important.
run out of time, and oh, I wish we
yeah.
could go so much farther. Boy, the time goes by quick sometimes. But it's a big part of Relax and Chat. I think it's very valuable to give you the opportunity to speak directly to the audience. You can share your website, upcoming events, anything you like. And I will, believe it or not, be silent.
Well, first of all, my website, ripartridge.com, is going to start having the Praxis Cluster Encyclopedia on it with all my races and worlds. And the book is out, and the book 2 will come out a year from now. So Escaping the Dashia is available wherever you would buy books. You can order it through your local bookstore if you want to support them. Or, of course, there's always Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
And I go to a lot of science fiction conventions. So if you ever are at one, I've always got a hat on because I'm so short. I have to do something to be easier to identify. And I love to talk to people. I would love to have somebody come up and go, "Oh, I read your book." I mean, every author wants to hear that.
Oh,
But my last message is, if you're a writer and can't not write, then write and enjoy it. Don't fight it.
yeah.
I put it off for 20 years.
Yeah, it's a shame to lose those years because I did something like that myself.
You gotta put, food on the table.
Yeah.
And
Well, I was
so-
a teen, and back in those days, you wrote with pen and paper. And I had about 5 years of short stories and poems that got stolen. I got very disheartened and moved on to other things. And T.S. Hoddle, actually a very, very good sci-fi writer. I'm standing there holding one of his novels, and he inspired me to become a real writer, and it reminded me how much I
Tamara
loved.
Pierce.
Yeah.
Tamara Pierce is the one that inspired me to pick it back up. My son loved her books. He liked my book. He was saying, "Mom, why don't you make it a YA and get published like her?" And I got to sit on a panel at BayCon with her one time.
Oh,
Talk
boy,
about going fangirl. Oh, I was just, oh yeah.
Wow, it had to feel good to sit on the same panel. Wow. Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. Well, I tell you what, I had the experience not too long ago. I used the free version of Zoom. I'm a writer. Sometimes that means you're not rich.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Zoom is a fantastic program. It's a great platform for this kind of thing. But when it gets to the end, it will go black. Yep. I would never do that. That's not me. I would never be that rude, but it could happen. So that being the case, I think we should go ahead and wrap it up here. I do want to say, oh my, it is so impressive the things you're involved in and what you've been doing. And I think your book looks awesome. It's already on my TBR. I am going to check it out. And so what's next for you?
So besides book 2, I'm actually co-authoring a paranormal mystery thriller, or co-authored, that is going to be out on Halloween. It's called Abby's Fire, and it's set in a small Iowa town where my aunt lives that I co-authored with. And it is just so much fun.
Oh,
yeah.
cool. And you've got a conference coming up too. Right.
Baycon is 4th of July weekend. I go to it every year, and I go to LosCon in November in Los Angeles every year. And then I either do NASFIC if World Fantasy's out of the country, or WorldCon or World Fantasy Con if I can.
Well, you're going to these conferences and stuff around California, you know. I hope you have the good fortune to run into someone I know, Lisa Kastner.
I'll check and see. That name sounds familiar.
She's the founder and executive editor of Running Wild Press. Oh, and she is an incredible woman. You would have a ball hanging out with her.
Running Wild Press is on my radar.
Oh, yeah.
As an editor, I'm always looking for where to refer my clients to.
Yeah. Well, I've got some experience with that press. I've got a short story coming out in their anthology. It's due out in May, you know.
Okay.
And but if you want to kind of get to know Lisa a little bit, she's in episode 16 of my show, Relax and Chat.
Oh, thank you. I'll check it out. You know, if it wasn't for small presses, people would be stuck with the big five or self-publishing. And I never had it in me to be a self-published author because I couldn't sell ice to an Eskimo. You know, I'm not a salesperson. I enjoy platform building. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy teaching. I love teaching my Write That Book in 10-week class. That is, you know, something that just really, because I do it with the students, so I crank out a book. But as to selling, hardest thing for me. Yeah, when you self-publish, you've got to be your own sales department.
Oh yeah, there is a lot involved in that.
Yeah, but the small presses really give an opening to stuff that just isn't big five material. Yeah. And thank God the big five didn't become just the big four.
Yeah.
I thought I thought it was a done deal that they were going to join. Yeah. And that would have just been almost as detrimental as when they joined all the distribution.
Yeah, I think you would enjoy talking with Lisa. Well, they have an imprint called Rise, and they open the door for all the minority people that would not have a chance with the big five. You know, it stinks, but they wouldn't have much chance. Well, Running Wild Press has got an open door. It doesn't matter where you come from. If you can write well, they want to hear from you.
I might have some clients to send that way.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll be at a conference somewhere, and the two of you will get a chance to have a mimosa. Those are good.
Now I'm thinking of the Expandables or whatever that cartoon was. And they would you like another mimosa? Oh yes, please.
Yeah. Well, I think we're about to run out of time. I want you to know it has been such an absolute pleasure to meet you.
Oh, so fun meeting you.
Yeah, and you have a standing invitation to return when your next book's ready to be published.
I will take you up on that, because that is going to be a lot of fun, because it's so different, that genre or subgenre. It just gives me a whole different mindset. It's a different playground.
Well, your website and a link to your
RIPartridge.com. Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to put all of that down in the description.
Oh, and on Facebook, it's Rebecca Inch-Partridge, author. I keep my writing and my personal life separate.
Yeah. Okay. That makes
although
sense.
I will put a cat video now and again.
There you go. But yeah, I share everything across my platform, and I'll make sure that your website and a link to your book and all of that good stuff is in there. And when your next book is ready, sure, contact me. Let's do this again.
I absolutely will. I really appreciate it. And I got to ask really quickly, is Rod short for Rodney?
Rodney, yes.
That was my dad's name. So no wonder we clicked and got along.
There you go.
Great name.
It's
all right. Thank you.
Yeah, you have a wonderful day. And
you too.
I've so enjoyed talking with you. It's been a blast.
It was really fun.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching Relax and Chat. I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did. Be on the lookout. Episode 23 is coming up next. The Return of the Expert Book Smuggler. You don't want to miss that. Have a great day.